to the metal when the lane moving fast. Hey, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Hey.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is a Freight Coach podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. I got a very special guest for you guys. I'm going to bring her up in a second, but we are going to talk about the most, like the question that I get the most is how do I sell? How do I get more customers? How do I do this? And we're going to talk about all of that. But before we do that, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at Green Screens, you guys. They had some major news released yesterday. Green Screens has been a longtime supporter of my show, and I personally use their product day in and day out inside of my brokerage. And it's not easy to build a business, you guys, especially inside of freight tech and everything else. And what they did through that and bringing on that acquisition through Triumph Capital, it's huge, you guys. So go over there, show them some love and everything, because they work very, very hard to build a phenomenal product. But onto the show, you guys. I'm going to bring her up right now. I got Mrs. Madison Santo on the show with AVRL. Madison, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me on the show.
You're a hustler, like straight up. I remember that when you first got to AVRL, we were at a conference. I forget which one, but afterwards, I reached out to Chad. I'm like, dude, she's a killer. Like, you were just out there going around and making stuff happen. And I'm out there. When I'm at shows, I'm there to work, right? And there's two distinct crowds. They're there to party, and they're there to work. And it's like the ones who are there to that are actually putting in and laying the groundwork for the long term and everything else. It's very, very evident. So shout out, and then same thing, like when we were at DatCon too in Kansas, you're out there hustling there as well. So I like hustlers at the end of the day. I love it. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think conferences are not utilized enough by salespeople. I think there's big moments and big things that can happen at conferences when it's people that you can't reach on the phone or are never going to respond to your email that you can catch in person. So that's something I feel strongly about for sure, is making the most out of these conferences and meeting people and hustling. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Madison, like I talk about all the time, is there's only one thing I can't teach somebody, and that's a work ethic. Like, I can teach anybody anything they need to know about freight sales, and within reason, right? Like, I don't know everything, but I know a lot about, inside of the realm that I work in, but I can't teach a work ethic, because I feel like either you have one or you don't. I don't think this is something that can be necessarily taught.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And and I think it has to be a personal drive that you have, even when your natural self is to possibly be lazy. I've talked about this in Will Jenkins' podcast, that I think people naturally can be lazy, but you can teach yourself. No one can teach you, but you can teach yourself. a good work ethic. It's kind of like I relate it to working out. Like nobody wants to start working out, but once you reap the benefits of working out, then you're like, oh, I do like this. Once you begin to hustle in sales and then you see that first commission check and that second commission check, then you're like, okay, yeah, the work and everything I'm putting in is worth this. However, I do agree with that. I do think it has to be an internal drive, even if you have to teach it to yourself. Internal drive can't be somebody pushing that on you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I'm glad you clarified that last part there, because like I agree with you there. Like you have to find it inside of yourself. Like, you know, I'll use myself as an example. I am inherently lazy, right? Like I don't want to do shit most days, you know, I don't want to get up. I want to sleep. I want to do all of that. But like I've just found that for you to get that, to find that drive, you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to really understand like they're not as bad as you think, right? And I'll always equate cold calling down to it, because cold calling brings out a lot of anxiety to people. As somebody who cold calls every single day, I understand it, right? Because like you do not know who is going to be on the other end of the phone when they pick up and everything else. But what you will find, if you are prepared, and I want to put that caveat in there, if you are prepared, 95% of the people are extremely cordial with you. They might not buy from you, but they're going to be cordial to you in your conversation with them.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the anxiety of cold calling can only be overcome by doing it over and over again. I think there's a lot of things. It's like speaking in front of people, performing in front of people, which I don't perform in front of people, but I know, you know, listening to other people talk about that, the only way to get over it is to continually do it. And cold calling is 100% the same. I would agree with that. You just kind of have to get out there and do it. And once you realize that, yeah, people are not like that angry at you, then it makes it so much easier to just continue forward. And then once you have success, then that makes it even easier. So,
yeah. I just think like you have to be willing to suck for a short amount of time, and you have to be able to like realize like, hey, nobody's thinking about you like you're thinking about you. And, you know, as soon as it's like, I mean, it like all the content that I've created, you know, this show, you know, and what that's led to, you know, speaking engagements at events and stuff like that. Like I like to leave a lot of that stuff up there because I never want anybody to listen to today's show, the system that we operate in now, and think like this is just the way that it always was, right? Like it took us sucking for a very long time to actually get this down to where now it's a pretty well-oiled machine at this point. And it comes from starting 5 years ago, and then, you know, having everything just turn to shit for a long time before you realize like, all right, cool. Nobody's thinking about me the way that I'm thinking about me. And as long as you keep showing up, that's where, again, back to the confidence statement, that's where a lot of it will always be driven from.
I had a sales leader when I first started who told me, when I was first cold calling, he was like, hey, you can't mess up so badly in these cold calls that it's going to hurt our business. There's too many people to call. There's too much business to have. Just try it. Just get on the phone and try it, and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations that expand you and that stretch you, because, you know, you're going to get on a call and you are going to fumble 100%. You're going to fumble on things. But then once you go back and you re-listen to it or you think about it, you're like, I should have said this. I should have rebutted with this, whatever it is. And then the next time, you know, but the only way to do that is to put yourself into uncomfortable situations. So I would very much so agree with that.
How do you build a relationship from business development? Like what is, because like I think that there's that instant gratification that a lot of people fall victim to, because like in today's day and age, like you don't have to really struggle for anything, right? Like you need anything, you can get it within a couple hours. How do you set that up from like the very first outreach? You've never talked to this person at all. How are you leading into something like that?
Yeah. So if we're going to go from like cold calling all the way through building a relationship. So on a cold call, you know, obviously you're not going to build much of a relationship through a cold call. However, you can catch someone's attention, and you have about 8 seconds. People's attention span today is about 8 seconds. That's been lowered, I think, about 7 years ago. It used to be 15. Today you have 8. So within 8 seconds, you have to be able to catch someone's attention pretty dramatically. And then you've got to get them on a first meeting. So your first goal in cold calling is, what can I say to get you on a meeting with me? Obviously not lying. I'm not telling salespeople to lie or stretch the truth, but what is something factual that you can say to get someone excited enough to say, you know what, I will take a call with you. And then throughout this process, I think a big thing is that salespeople have to be overly, or they have to have a lot of clarity with their prospects. You have to be overly honest with your prospects. That way, if anything does fall back on you, it's never like, hey, the salesperson lied to me. So when people ask me, hey, what's the hardest thing about AVRL and implementing your software? I immediately go into change management. Change management is really hard. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, you're going to get internal pushback. Yes, I need top-down buy-in. And so we actually dig in and talk about the things that are really difficult. And when you start to tell prospects and these people that you're building a relationship with that it's not all dandy and it's not all easy and it's super simple, throw it in and it's going to run and make you all this money, then it creates trust with those people. And then you begin to build rapport. And then, you know, even as you're getting close to selling a deal, following up with people, and then continuing to be there for them as they're your customer. So, but I think being overly honest in the beginning creates a really great relationship with these people. And, you know, sometimes being overly honest means you don't get the deal. Maybe it is something that's a deal breaker, but then they're not going to be a good customer at the end of the day. So I think honesty from the very beginning and being maybe even overly honest with people creates a level of trust with them that will carry all throughout and will create a lot of rapport with both prospects becoming customers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like actually telling my prospects what we don't do in like the opening couple of calls, right? Because like again, like we're full truckload, we're open deck at the end of the day. Yeah. We don't do LTL, we don't do air freight and intermodal and stuff like that. So I like to throw that out there because again, in some of these instances, no matter, even if you do the research on some of these companies, Madison, sometimes their website, you might perceive it in the wrong way and you're going to go in there and then they're going to be like, we don't need you or whatever. And then you keep going down this path of, thinking that there's potential there where I like to, cause like I'm out here trying to grow revenue. I'm not here to try and become best friends with everybody and anybody that I talk to. I have a window that I operate in, and that's what I want to find out. Like I've talked about this. I've gamified the rejection to where it's like, if they don't fit in, like I want to know so I don't call them ever again, to where it's like, in my opinion, if you ever have like anxiety with cold calling and you have a singular focus on what you're going after. Again, I'll use this because we do truckload, we do open deck. If they're primarily LTL, that's a win if I find out that they're LTL on the first phone call, so I don't call them back because I don't want to go after them, right? Like you have to have your ideal customer profile. You have to have that information. And again, you got to get to the point, right? Like I have found that, as a founder, the amount of solicitations that I'll even get for my business, like it's kind of out of control. But I respect the hustle only if they actually know what I'm doing. Like I cannot understand how somebody who is a freight broker will DM me and ask to do my freight for me when I don't even manufacture freight. Like, I don't do anything like that, right? So it's like you guys are so lazy out there. Like that's your approach. And it's like, just imagine what a couple of, 5-10 minutes of taking your time and going out there and finding out a little bit more about the company that you're even going after.
Spraying and praying does not work anymore. I think I have some hot takes on sales, and I probably think about sales pretty differently than a lot of people do. But let me tell you, spray and pray does not work anymore. The 1990 sales method doesn't work anymore. You have to be more strategic today than ever. Salespeople have to start building their own marketing. Salespeople should be building their own personal persona. There's just so much that goes into sales, and sales has evolved and changed over time dramatically. And that old shoot 10 emails, throw them in a sequence, it doesn't work anymore. There's too much competition out there. Also, people are inundated. Like you just said, how many calls, or maybe not calls, I don't know how many people are cold calling these days, but how many emails and outreaches and LinkedIn messages do you get from people? I was talking with a prospect the other day, and I'm like, I don't even know how you can make a decision on what type of technology or whatever it is to go with, because we're totally inundated, and buyers have to be have to have more walls up than ever before.
Yeah.
And you have to do more research today than ever before, and vice versa. Sales needs to be more strategic today than ever before. Those old sales methods are out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have found, at least from freight brokerage, depending on the customer you're trying to go after, like I think if you're starting out and you're trying to go after a Fortune company of any of the levels publicly traded, I don't know if that's going to return much fruit in the next probably 2 to 3 years, if I'm being completely honest, because like at the end of the day, they're getting hit up more than literally everybody that's out there. I like to stay in the small to mid-size market. That's where I like to play. I have found that cold calling exponentially more effective than email with that group. But those are the people. Those are the people that I want to go after, though, because like again, I want to just show anybody that I actually know what I'm talking about when I'm speaking with them on a call. Because you're right, you got 10 seconds to put yourself out there. That's why I say this is who I am. This is what we do. This is why I'm reaching out, and I let them talk. And again, it's like get a little bit out of them. Hey, I'm going to call you back next month. Is that okay with you? I want that verbal, and then boom, I'm going to call them back. I'm going to end that conversation in that moment and move on with my day so they can move on with their day. And that's like, again, interviewing as many people as I have on this show now, that has actually helped me so much more in cold calling and business development than I could have ever thought, because I can read these individuals way better now than I ever have in the past, because I can just tell on somebody's tonality in their voice what they want to even do, and just ending that and move on. I think that's going to pay off in the long run for us.
Yeah, I agree. I love to ask people this, Chris. Do you have any, and I have many, do you have any hot takes on sales that you would throw out there and you would say, hey, I think this works. This probably isn't a popular opinion. But any sales hot takes?
For me?
Yep.
Oh, shit, you're asking me the question here. Sales hot takes is I think that a lot of you are overcomplicating what you're actually trying to do. Like the amount of buzzwords that people fill into their pitches is just fucking insane to me. Like I'm a freight broker. All right. I'm not a logistician or whatever bullshit term you want to put behind it. I am a freight broker. Here's who we are. And that's it. And I want to be as upfront with people as possible about my intentions, right? Like, because I don't like to be lied to. I don't like any, I want straight shooters. I want somebody to come in about any of that stuff. And I think like people try and build it up on trying to become something that they're not, as opposed to just realizing that like ultimately people just want reality, right? It's like, and I'm saying that along with like the content creation side of things as well. I was told early on to literally not do everything that I do right now from a content. You can't curse, you can't do this. I have literally built a brand off of just being myself, and it has been wildly successful from doing that. So again, eventually you got to stop debating and trying to make stuff up. And you got to realize that the more simple and straightforward you are with people, it is way more relatable out there than trying to come up with some other gimmick.
Yeah, I agree. Buzzwords. Yeah. If salespeople could take those sales buzzwords out of their dialogue, that would be wildly helpful. I read a book called The 48 Laws of Power. It's an interesting book, not everything I would follow. But one thing that this book talks about, kind of what you were saying, is that you cannot be neutral. If you are neutral in your personality and what you put out there and your content and everything, you just get pushed into a crowd with everybody else. You have to take some type of extreme. If we look at news stations take extremes, but that's how they get people to view it. If you're just neutral and you go in and you act like everyone else, you say the same things, you have the same type of content that you push out there, blah, 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 you're not really going to be seen, and you're not going to stand out from the crowd. You have to learn to take some extremes. In sales, someone told me, if you want to make a sale, you either have to push fear into somebody, like if I don't have this, my business can't accelerate, or you have to excite them on a high level. So you've got to start, I think people also have to start putting in more extremes. And I think it would be really easy to do if you just weren't cookie cutter. You were just had straight authenticity, exactly who you are, exactly what you think, and stop being cookie cutter, then that would just happen naturally. I think when people become into that neutral spot is like, oh, I can't say this, I can't do this, have to fit into this mold, have to do all of these things. And you know from our business, and I know from your business, neither of our businesses work that way. And I think it works out really well in our favor for us personally and the brand of our company.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I've also come down to this conclusion as well. Maybe it's definitely changed over the years. Maybe it's because I'm almost 40 now. Is I would rather have somebody not like me for who I am than like me for who I'm not. And I just feel like that's just a facade, right? Like I'm not going to be for everybody, and you're not going to be for everybody. And the same thing from a business development standpoint, you're not going to onboard everybody you talk to, right?
No,
but when you're out there, is you're trying to actively find those individuals, because I've just found this, the most successful relationships that I've had in business took the least amount of effort.
Yeah.
And it's because it was like a natural connection that kind of came along early on, right? And then it's built up over time. And I've just found that the more you have to fight for something, you're just going down a path of misery, essentially, because, you know, it's just like these individuals, like, I don't take no for an answer, yada. Keep going down that path. I waste your time. I'm not going to do that, right? Like I would prefer somebody tell me, hey man, no, we're not going to set you up, like literally under any circumstances. It's just not going to happen. Perfect. Thank you so much for the information. I'm going to move on with my day. I want that. I want that straightforwardness that comes along with it.
Biggest mistake a salesperson can make, and this is something that I think has reigned true for many, many years, is spinning your wheels on someone that's never going to buy from you. They're never going to buy from you. You're constantly spinning your wheels. And it's like, I don't want to throw them out of my pipeline. For whatever reason, it's this heart-jerking thing that's like, I don't want to throw this person out of my pipeline. What about one more follow-up, even though they've told me no many times? One more call, one more email, one more. And it's like, when you're so focused on this one person because they're in your pipe, you're missing, you know, these hundreds over here who are ready to buy, but you don't have the time to reach out for them because you have 50 right here that you're just refusing to move out of your pipeline to go after more. No is 100% an answer for me. You tell me no, that's it. You know, if we re-engage in the future or we run into each other, awesome. That's happened multiple times in my sales career at AVRL and before, where it's just like, hey, you know, that wasn't right timing. I think another thing salespeople get wrong is that there is a right timing for things. Sometimes right now is just not good timing. No might not be no forever, but no is right now. And you got to give people time because it might not be best for their business, even though you could sell them the most amazing, revolutionary technology in the world. But if it's not the right time for the prospect, then it's not going to go well. Implementation is everything.
I think one thing to take into consideration, I was told this by a mentor of mine, no is a complete sentence. It's as simple as that. No is a complete sentence. Madison, what are some things that, what were some of your more like defining moments in your career that kind of actually brought a lot more clarity to it? Like maybe it was like a, you know, I don't want to call anything like a failure or anything like that, but what were some of those situations, whether it was in, you know, this industry or, you know, past sales jobs where you're like, shit, now it makes sense. I can't do that anymore. I got to go down this path.
Yeah. I would think, I think the biggest failure of salespeople is spinning their wheels in multiple different ways. I think another thing too is when you are starting to cold call, spinning your wheels in cold calling. I think knowing who to cold call within a company is so important. I have the belief that you should start with top down. I'm not going to be calling a manager level person. I'm going to be calling a VP or C level. I want somebody on this first call that can drive this through the company. I don't like starting low and working my way up. I think that is something that I've done in my past. And again, it goes back to like spinning your wheels, is trying to work your way in the bottom up. I found that does not work. I would teach every salesperson not to do that. It just extends your sales cycle. Anything that extends your sales cycle is a failure to me. So, and you're going to learn from those failures because I've extended many sales cycles doing just that. That's a big one. Multi-threading is one of the most important things that you can do in sales. You cannot be locked down by one contact in a company. Yes, you have a champion within a company, but you need to have multiple champions within a company, because even if that champion does get your deal across the finish line, awesome. What if this implementation starts to go haywire? Who are you going to reach out to? You need multiple contacts to bring in. And then again, you still need that top down relationship, so that if something does go south, you have a higher up person that can drive this to say, no, I'm going to get this back on track. I probably have a lot of takes, but I would say those are two things that, from the top of my head, those are two things that would really, really extend sales cycles, which we obviously want to shorten sales cycles, and just cause you to be more frustrated, spin your wheels are those two things. So.
Did you find that approach switched in SaaS style sales, which you're in now, as opposed to freight? Was that when the transition kind of happened with that, or was it when you were because I didn't even ask you, were you brokering?
No, I've never brokered freight in my life. Okay. So I know Chris is like, everyone I bring in are experts. And I'm like, well, he brought in me. Okay.
Well, Madison clearly knows what the hell she's talking about.
I've never brokered freight. No, I've been on the technology side in multiple different areas. So I've always been in tech, but I've been in transportation for about 7 years now.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. No. It was one of those things. Because obviously I read your bio and everything that came over. And I remember the first time we had met, you were like, oh, I've been in the industry for 7 years. I literally assumed you slung freight for a minute before you came to AVRL.
No.
So, that's funny. I love it. I think that, the multi-thread is very, very valuable for individuals that are out there, and to kind of bring it in from like the freight perspective as well here. I think that you're going to ultimately have a decision maker. Sometimes in the small to mid-sized shippers that are out there, the decision maker is also the one who's booking, setting the appointments and everything else. But as soon as you can get another point of contact in there to become a brand champion of yourself, you will exponentially elevate in people's eyes. I have personally found it on the freight side that your ability to accurately bill a customer in a timely manner is almost as important as your truck showing up on time, because that is one of those situations where it's like, if you create a nightmare for their back office, they're going to hate you. And then they will tell the person, do not send that person freight. They can't invoice us properly. I've personally been through that, but that's one of those things. I'm glad you brought up that multi-thread. I've never heard of it that way.
Multi-threading.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How are you guys this year? I think that you guys have taken one of the more unique approaches as a company. And I've talked with Chad about this a lot. Going out there and kind of building your guys' brand. I like it because it's different. Most people we got to put our logos on everything. We got to be this, that, and everything under the sun. You guys haven't been incognito, but you guys have been very strategic about it. And I remember the very first time I met Chad, he was still living in Washington at the time. Wow. Yeah. And he was talking about that. How has that buy-in helped shape the growth of your guys' company from a business development perspective?
Yeah. I think that it's so interesting. The first time people get on a call with us, it's so interesting to see them be like, wait, who do you work with? What do you do? And then why don't you do any type of marketing? Big piece of not doing marketing is that in freight, and I think most people would agree with this, everyone just steals everyone's ideas. It's like, oh, this one person had this really cool idea. And then the second someone else finds out, they're like, oh, I'm going to take this and just make this little tweak to it, and we're going to push it this way. So that's a big reason why we've never marketed, but I think it's such an interesting approach to sales. I think another thing that has really helped it is that as a prospect is vetting AVRL, we're vetting the prospect too. We are not in this like hyper growth mode where we want to bring on everyone. That is not our approach. So when I cold call somebody or I'm reaching out with a purpose. Mm-hmm. So I'm not just out here doing a spray and pray. We want really good customers. We have a really good name in the industry. I know we don't push anything out there, but if you know our customers, we have a really good name, and our tech speaks for itself. It's unbelievable. But yeah, I just think that everyone is stealing everybody's ideas. And if your tech is as good as you say it is, it's gonna go viral. People are gonna hear about it. You don't need a lot of marketing to do it. Again, if it is good as if it is as good as you say it is.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, and I think that kind of seeing the rise in stabilization of freight tech over the last probably 6 to 7 years, I think that one of the more challenging things for freight tech companies right now and in the near future is going to be the utter resistance from people who were sold a bill of goods in 2018 through 2022 that never actually materialized. And there's a, and the same thing goes on the freight side, right? Like you're literally only as good as their last experience with the person offering the service or product that you are currently doing, right? So I think like hearing all of that though, you guys, it is a lot easier to separate yourself than you think. If you just kind of do what you say you're going to do. And that's why I just believe in that brutal transparency and just being upfront and honest with my capabilities right away. It's a lot easier to live on your truth than it is to try and lie yourself out of multiple layers of lies out there.
Yeah, and you get a really bad name in the industry. We're in a huge industry, yet such a small industry, all the same. So the moment that you stop delivering what you say you're going to deliver, that spreads just as fast as the good news. Bad news actually probably spreads way faster than the good news. Is immediately don't use that company. They don't deliver. So yeah, I mean, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. There's too much tech out there. And if you want to separate yourself, definitely deliver what you say you're going to deliver.
100%. Madison, thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to have you back on. I feel, and Matt Fink said it. Like we could have gone for a lot longer.
I know.
But let's put your, how can anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you guys got going on, or if they want to connect with you in any way?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn if anybody doesn't follow me. So connect with me if you've got sales questions or AVRL questions. Either way, I love talking about sales. I have way more hot takes I could go through, Chris, but I love talking sales. I also love talking automation and what AVRL does. So if you're interested in either of those things, message me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Madison, thank you so much for joining. That's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show. If you're feeling really ambitious, which you should be after this one, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because that helps us get out there to more people, because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.